All right. The audio level's looking good.
Looking pretty good.
Sweet.
Are recording.
Live. Sweet.
Live and in concert.
Welcome to Systems in Play.
Welcome to Systems in Play. Play.
Play. This is a podcast, right? I think.
Last time I checked.
Sweet.
I think we only ever introduced ourselves in the first episode. I'm Sam.
I'm CJ. How's it going?
How are you? We'll wait. Oh, wow. Man, you should see a doctor about that.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound too great, man. Anyway, Sam, what have you been playing this week?
This week, I have been playing a new little indie game that came out called Pepper Grinder.
Oh, I've heard a little about this. I think you showed it to me before it was out.
Yeah, this is one that, although I'm not going to remember the developer's name, link in show notes, I do know I don't know the developer, but I've been following the developer on this one since it was just like a prototype in whatever engine they used, and it's really cool. It's a platformer where you play as a girl, a person with a drill, and the main mechanic is you just kind of have like a really basic run and jump, but then you can move freely in all directions when you're in the ground drilling. And they do a lot of really interesting things with it.
Pro tip, don't just Google Pepper Grinder if you're looking for this game.
Yeah, there might be something else. I don't know what it would be.
So the first thing that comes to my mind looking at these pictures is, you ever played, what's that game? The game where you're going up a tower shooting bows?
Towerfall.
Towerfall, yeah.
Is that it?
Towerfall.
Yes. That was it was made by I think that was made by some of the same people who worked on Celeste, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I've never played Celeste, so Celeste herself was in the game.
Oh yeah, she was.
Yeah.
But the Pepper Grinder is not made by them, but I definitely see the comparison in terms of art style.
Well, I was generally more talking about specifically the drill arrow in Towerfall.
Oh my god, yeah, you're so right.
It just looks like that is what I see. But you're the arrow, which is cool.
Yeah, you're the arrow. I really have been enjoying it. It's a tough little platformer. It's not super long, which I am grateful for. I picked it up over the weekend, and I'm on the second half of what I assume is the final boss. It is my hand has been cramping. It's really tough.
Yeah, less weekend or less like 1,000+ hour open world games, more like weekendish games, please.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. Not to bury the lead though, like Pepper Grinder, it's like a level-based platformer with progression through a couple different worlds. Your main mechanic is going through certain types of not environment, but like platform. You can go through dirt. You can go through dirt with the grinder, and when you come out of the dirt, you get like a little jump in the air, and then you can get an even bigger jump by pressing B right before you come out of the dirt. And that's like the central mechanic through the whole game, but they do lots of other really cool stuff with it. For example, they have a grappling hook mechanic, which I love. I love any game that's going to give me a grappling hook. So there's lots of really interesting things with, like, you shoot out of a clod of dirt and then you have to grapple yourself onto a thing. You're like spinning in the air. You have to launch yourself into another section of dirt. It's pretty cool. It makes you feel like Spider-Man.
It makes you feel like a drill. That's cool.
One of the more interesting things that I did not expect going into the game was the attachments on top of the weapons. or on top of the drill, one of which is a rail gun. So basically, like, you find these attachments in the level. You can't, like, it's not a permanent upgrade. You attach it to your drill, and then for the duration of while that is attached, you no longer have a drill. You have, like, this rail gun, and it's just a completely different set of mechanics while you're doing that. You can switch back to the drill at any point, essentially like dropping the attachment, but it's really cool.
Oh, so they're not like permanent. You like, have to go back and pick them up to you. Okay.
Right. It's a physical item that you pick up and attach to your drill. They did the machine or the rail gun was really cool. They had like there's a section more toward the end of the game that's like literally just a bullet hell, and after like some extremely cramping platforming both before and after that section, it was really nice. Just a cool change of pace. There are some other really interesting ways that they use the attachment system, but I'm not going to say anything because it's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, toward the end of the game, it gets really crazy, the type of stuff that they're willing to give you, and it's a lot of fun. The game has a really good balance of like tough, tricky platforming sections, hard boss battles, and then, all right, we're just going to let you go absolutely ape shit for like 15 minutes, and then you can go back to the hard stuff. But it gives you a lot of good relief sections, I feel.
Are there any like challenge areas like Celeste? I have seen those where you have to like go out of your way to a really hard place that's optional.
I don't know. I do know that you can collect 5 hidden coins throughout each level, and there is a shop where you can spin those coins. You can find a golden key at the shop. Each world has its own shop. You can get a golden key, which unlocks an extra level in the world.
That's sick.
The one I didn't seem particularly more difficult than the others. It was just kind of like it was like a beach level, and it was the first time in the game, I think, that you got to interact with water. And the water mechanics are really interesting too. You are extremely slow in the water unless you are at the very, very tip of the surface, and you have to get it at a specific angle, and then you go extremely fast.
Oh, so your drill like becomes a jet ski.
Yes.
That's cool as hell.
It's you cannot control it hardly. It is insane. But it's really cool.
Oh, that's sweet.
But yeah, so there's unlockables like that. Each world has its own sticker book that you can unlock. Again, with those coins, and then they have like a little gachapon machine where you actually unlock the stickers using just the regular currency that you earn throughout the game. This time, I've been taking a slightly different approach to how I normally play a game, and that is I have not been trying to do any of the challenges. I haven't been trying to get the coins. I wanted to beat it. I wanted to get all the way through. My backlog is insane. I start so many games and never finish them. I'm like, I'm going to finish this start to end, and assuming I do go back and beat the final boss, which I cannot close out of that game on my Switch until I do, because then I will lose all my progress. I will beat the game. And yeah, I just wanted to finish it instead of getting caught up in the weeds of trying to complete every single thing and then never completing anything like I am off to do.
Man, I need to adopt that mindset because there are too many games where I've spent hours doing nothing. Just running around. My eyes crossed, just not looking ahead, just going, never getting anything done.
Yep. I feel ya. How many hours and hours have I wasted like checking every trash can in Pokemon for the 2 potions that I've ever found using that method? And I'm like, why? Why am I wasting my precious time on this earth doing something that will afford me almost no benefit? And if it is like a truly key essential item, I'm going to look it up anyway. So
There you go. Genius.
Yeah, what have you been playing?
My little brother has been playing Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. Just sort
insane
of
name.
yeah,
What?
Kingdom. Yeah, it's crazy. It is a little spit off of Kingdom Hearts, sorta, for the DS, and for a series about like friendship and Mickey Mouse, it is a friggin' dark game.
Oh.
That gets a little depressing, but that's a topic for another time. I dug out my DS because he's been playing this, and I'm like, I want to play my DS, and I've been playing Spirit Tracks again.
Ooh. Okay, I have not played Spirit Tracks, but I have seen. That's the one with the map mechanic, right?
Yeah, so The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks is the third game in the Toon Link series, starting with Wind Waker, and then Phantom Hourglass, which I've never played, even though Wind Waker was like my favorite game ever. And then Spirit Tracks. Spirit Tracks, you're on a train rather than a boat. But yeah, you're right. It has this cool mechanic where you can draw on the map, and they make sure you know that, because there are times where it'll show you a drawing of the map with like markers on it, and it's like, hey, you can copy this to your map. Very straightforward. But yeah. And then there are times where it doesn't do that. It's not as deliberate. It'll be like there's a sequence of buttons you have to press, but that information will be somewhere else on the map.
I see.
So then you have to go to the map, remember where those buttons are, and then write that down.
Honestly, I love that mechanic. I love the idea of that. I wish I had it in. I don't know how it would work, but I wish I had that in more games.
It is super cool. Yeah. It's funny, though, when you go back to a place you haven't been in a while, like, hey, I don't remember drawing a smiley face there. I don't remember drawing a little Among Us there.
That's just part of the game. They
Yeah.
just the game will randomly generate Among Us.
It's fun. It's fun to leave little Easter eggs for yourself when you come back. But that's what I've been playing a lot. It's a fun game. Nintendo likes to do things with their consoles that you can't do on any of the other consoles.
Yeah.
It doesn't have traditional movement like up, down, left, right with your D-pad. You have to use the stylus to like drag where you want Link to go. So you like hold it on the right side of the stylus. You hold the stylus on the right side of your screen, he'll go right, and like wherever you're pointing, he'll go. To attack stuff, you have to like either tap on it or do a swipe to do a swipe attack, or like spin the stylus around the screen to do a spin attack.
I mean, I could see that being cool. I could also see that being a nightmare.
For the first like dungeon, for a while, I'm like, hey, I don't remember this. This is cool. I thought it was a D-pad. Yeah, it was a Zelda game.
Yeah.
And then it got really like my arm got tired. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Can I please use the D-pad? But it doesn't even give you the option.
It doesn't seem like the most comfortable way to hold it. Like you're essentially holding up the entire console with one hand while also having to press buttons with that hand. I mean, I know the DS is small, but that sounds like an ergonomic nightmare.
It kind of is. I eventually, if I'm traveling a long distance, you adopt this grip where you like hold you hold the stylus like a chopstick, and then you hold the DS with the same hand you're holding the chopstick, so you can hold it in one hand and walk
God.
while you do other stuff.
Legend of Zelda carpal tunnel.
That's exactly what it is. But it's neat. The train's cool. I don't think they did enough with it. I don't know. In Wind Waker, you get like, I think in the remake, you get a different sail that makes you go faster. In the original Wind Waker, you could get once you get the grappling hook, it becomes like a little fishing thing for the boat. If you use the grappling hook on the boat, and then when you unlock bombs, they become a cannon.
Oh, that's cool.
But it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't do enough with the train, in my opinion. You get a cannon, but it's not linked to your bombs. You can shoot it as many times as you want, and it basically becomes how you solve most things on the train. Enemy coming, cannon. There's a puzzle. You usually have to shoot something with a cannon.
I see.
There's these little teleport gates around that are like sort of the fast travel in the world. You have to shoot them with a cannon to activate them. So most things get done with the cannon, and I think they could have done a little more with the train, but it's cool to ride around on a train and whistle the horn whenever you want.
Okay.
Every kid's dream.
Plus 1 point on any review scale.
Yeah.
Even if it's a 5-point review scale, sorry, you get to blow the train whistle. I do have a question.
Yeah.
Is the train a person or a character? Does it talk? I have a feeling that it is, given its track record.
No.
I am floored.
But the cool thing about Spirit Tracks, I don't think they've done for any of the other Zelda games, or if they have, whoops. In every Zelda game, you get like a follower, right? Who's basically Link's voice and the tutorial at the same time.
Correct.
I believe this is probably the only game where it's Zelda. She's not fridged the whole time.
Oh.
But she is dead.
Okay. Is this the one where she's like the suit of armor?
Yes.
Okay. I thought that may have been Phantom Hourglass because it said Phantom in the title.
That's what I thought too, back in the day. But no, that's Spirit Tracks.
Oh, well, that's fair. Interesting idea. I mean, like kind of a bold move to be like, oh yeah, Zelda, she's dead.
Yeah.
You know the one on the box?
Yep. But despite that, she is in the whole game the whole time, and she's a fun character. She actually talks and says stuff.
Oh man, yeah. The rare for Zelda to actually get the opportunity to be characterized.
I've heard the argument that she's also in Wind Waker most of the time. If you've played Wind Waker, Tetra's in it, and then she realizes she's Zelda, and then she's fridged for the rest of the game. So that doesn't count. But yeah, no, that the armor mechanic is cool too. I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah.
So you go through the Zelda thing. You go to a sanctuary. You talk to a dude. He opens the temple. You go to the temple. You fight a boss. And then after that, you have to go back to the Tower of Spirits, I think. And once you're there, then Zelda gets to possess armor. Only at the Tower of Spirits does that happen.
The rest of the time, is she just a spirit flying around?
Yes.
Okay.
She's basically Navi. She's just a fairy that just sort of appears when she's important or needed. But when she's the armor, you control her by dragging a line from her to where you want her to go with the stylus. Everything is done with the stylus in this game.
So you both control Link and Zelda with the stylus?
Yes. So there's a button that can let you switch to focusing the camera on her. But at any time, even if the camera's on Link, you can touch her with the stylus, draw a line, and she'll walk that line. Yeah, and she'll attack whatever's in the way, or she'll do whatever.
Interesting.
But it gets cumbersome after a while.
Yeah.
She's really freaking slow as the armor. And you can't go through doors without her being there, so you have to wait for her to catch up. It was a cool mechanic for the first couple floors, but again, I felt its presence wearing thin after a while.
I see.
I'm like, can this be a normal Zelda dungeon, please?
Right. You know what? I always, on one hand, I'm like, yeah, it's really cool that Nintendo does try to do different things with their consoles. The Wii doing motion control, DS with the stylus. But like, ultimately, in so many cases, it does end up being more of a hindrance, and in many cases, future versions of those games that get ported to other consoles remove all the features that made them unique and are often lauded for it. I.e., like most of the Wii U games that got ported and all the Wii U stuff disappeared. Although I will say, in Breath of the Wild, having the menu on the gamepad itself was definitely how that game was meant to be played. It was fine. It was like completely fine on the Switch, but I do miss playing it on the gamepad. But I think like Mario Galaxy, I think people generally like preferred to play that one with a controller. The Wii, just like shaking around and pointing at stars. I think It's been a second since I played Mario Galaxy. And the same thing kind of with mobile games. There were early attempts to try a bunch of different stuff, but everything is just slowly coalesced back to a basic controller, even if that means just putting the controller physically on the screen. It's on one hand, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad they're trying new things, but on the other hand, I'm like, it just normally doesn't work that well, which is kind of a shame.
It's nice when they do try something, but then they also just give you the option to use keyboard, mouse, and/or controller.
Yeah,
That's, I think, the best way to tackle that. The funniest thing, because you said it just eventually came back to being a controller.
right.
I think one of the funnier examples is the Professor Layton games. The first one, when you're entering, I don't know, just something random I noticed watching playthroughs of these games. The first one, you have to draw the letters to enter your name at the beginning.
Oh, good Lord.
And it didn't always come out right. The second one, just drop that. You can just type it.
Yeah.
It's like, they figured it out.
Yeah.
Eventually, they'll figure it out.
It's, yeah. I did see Ubisoft has been trying to, like, port some of its bigger games onto mobile, specifically like iPhone and iPad. And I saw a trailer for, I think it was Assassin's Creed Mirage, and the way they handled it was left side of the screen is a joystick, and then the right side is not buttons, but it's, well, not like traditional, like AXBY buttons, but it's buttons specifically for the action that you're going to do. So instead of like press triangle to do this, it's press the slide button to slide. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I've ever seen a game try it specifically that way before, where instead of like trying to map a controller onto a screen, they take all of the commands and make dedicated buttons on the screen for them. I'm interested to try. Like, I'm not going to pay, $60 to play it on my iPad because that sounds like a nightmare, to be honest. But it is interesting. I'm fascinated with different non-standard control layouts, especially for mobile.
That seems convoluted, trying to map that many, well, depending on the game, a lot of controls to each their own.
Yeah. It looked like there were maybe 5 or 6 different commands, and they were all kind of like in a radial circle around the thumb. So you can kind of like rotate your thumb to click on different sections and then kind of stretch it out a little bit further. I could see it working if done very, very well.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't have the most confidence for like a port of a console game that's coming to mobile.
Yeah.
That being said, they are bringing Death Stranding to mobile, so
I've heard that.
I'd be curious to see what they do for that.
Isn't that like just because of some deal with Kojima and Apple?
Oh yeah, 100%. They're like trying to get people to see them as more of a gaming thing, and rather than like supporting most of the games, they're like trying to get people to get big companies to buy in and build things specifically for their hardware, which is, if this was a video podcast, you could see me rolling my eyes.
Kojima's a weird choice if they're trying to be like, we're a video gaming console now, because his games are like almost not games,
Maybe that's intentional.
Okay.
Because it's like this could work well on an iPad because you don't necessarily need advanced controls.
That's true.
And like, I could get down playing a walking sim on like a big screen like that. But again, like, in theory it sounds good, but the more I think about it in practice, I'm like, okay, well, am I going to be holding all all like 11 inches of this piece of glass. That that doesn't sound comfortable at all.
So playing a walking sim on a mobile device is like very dystopic.
Oh. Give me my Metal Gear mobile game integration with Niantic Metal Gear Walk.
Oh man, horrible.
Oh man,
I wouldn't put it past Konami now that they've gotten rid of Kojima.
oh yeah. Kojima, no. Konami, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, no, I've been playing Spirit Tracks.
Yeah.
Not much else.
Before we get on to the next topic, how has it been using the DS? Going back to what at this point is like kind of old hardware. What's it like?
It's been neat. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's just nostalgia talking, but I've liked it. It's got me thinking a lot about controls that you don't know that consoles have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, didn't you tell me something about the Switch? And I was like, whoa. Or no, it was the new Wario game on the Switch. The controllers have like motion capture, kinda.
Yeah, so the bottom of, I think it's just the left Joy-Con. If you look at it, get out your Switch right now. We'll wait.
Hurry up now, come on.
Okay, you got it. On the bottom of, I think it's the left, maybe the right Joy-Con, there's a little black, like, something. It's a screen, is what it is. It's like a little black piece of glass at the bottom, and beneath that is actually a camera, a tiny IR camera. And I think one of the only games that was used for was 1-2 Switch, where you could essentially do like rock, paper, scissors and hold your hand out below the controller and it would detect which one you're doing. It again, like, who's going to develop something specifically for that? Right. Especially when the whole idea of the Switch is that you can play games with one of the controllers. And not both. I don't think both of the controllers have that.
Right.
It's an interesting decision, but it's there. I think WarioWare uses it now as well.
That's the first time I'd heard of it. That's just them casually dropping, oh yeah, our Switch can do this too. And I just had no idea. No idea. But now playing the DS has got me thinking about that. And like, did you know, I know you're not a PlayStation guy, I am. I didn't realize that for the longest time, the PS4 controller, the big black button, is like a touchpad that you can swipe and stuff on.
I did actually know that. I don't know why, but I think it's really cool.
I, for the longest time, did not know that, and I don't know of many games that use it. I think Ghost of Tsushima is the first one I played. We're like, hey, it's just down swipe is another button, basically. Left swipe and right swipe and up swipe are just new buttons. That's all it is.
That doesn't sound super comfortable.
They're not like imperative. I think down swipe is just to like highlight where you're going. Like left swipe is to call your horse. It's nothing you're gonna like be doing in the middle of something frantic.
Okay, I mean, I'm into it.
Basically, an extra D-pad at that point, I think.
Right.
But I just didn't know that for the longest time. But no, playing the DS has been pretty nostalgic. I gotta go see what other games I have. It's been so long. I just picked up Spirit Tracks was the first thing I saw, and I'm like, I haven't played this in forever. I'm gonna play this.
Nice. I found my sister's old DSi recently. I never had one. And I just opened it up and I was like, wow, we're so far away from this. It doesn't feel like we've come that far. And I don't necessarily think it's like a huge improvement necessarily. It's just different. Just a very different way of thinking about software. Well, I have a question that will lead us into the main topic for the episode. And that is, have you ever lost a save in a game? Like, you're playing, your Game Boy dies before you get a chance to save. Now your Charmander isn't a your Charmeleon is no longer a Charmeleon, it's a Charmander. If so, like what are your worst experiences with losing save data?
I have two. I have a really dumb, my fault, I was a child and stupid, and then I have one that just was a really low point. It was so bad. I was really upset about it. Which one do you want to hear?
Let me hear the child, and then I want to hear the depths of despair.
Okay. So I was a kid, and I loved Melee a lot, but I was really small and had no idea what options were. And I somehow got to the option to wipe your characters that you've unlocked. And I had unlocked all the characters, which for a small child, and I don't think... Now, this was like early internet days, so I could look up how to do it, but I didn't. And it was a lot of progress.
Yeah.
I made it to the options, and there was a button that said characters, and I was like, ooh, it's A, and they're all gone. All gone. It was so... I was a stupid child.
Man.
But yeah, I was sad about that for a good solid week. All my friends bullied me because I deleted my save data.
I appreciate that now that it's like, okay, click yes, click and hold A, B, X, Y at the same time, hold for 30 seconds, hold your console upside down. Are you sure? Are you sure?
Here's the thing.
Oh, no.
It probably said that. I haven't played Melee in forever, but I was really dumb and didn't read anything. I was like, yes. Obviously, I want characters. And
this must be how I unlock Mew 3.
Yep. But that's my dumb child story. The absolute depths of... I've tried to bury this info until you ask this question. I am a big fan of the XCom series. XCom was one of the first games. XCom, the newer ones by Firaxis, not the old 90s ones. I never played those, sadly. But that was one of the first games that I played for a solid week and didn't put down until I had beat it. And I don't beat games that often.
You can confirm.
And then the second one was also really fun. But I was playing it on PS4, and it's a little buggy. It's not made for PS4, and I had like the first gen PS4. And for whatever reason, I'm like, I want to do Iron Man mode because I did good on the first one. And Iron Man mode, if you don't know, doesn't let you save. You have one save throughout the game. And it, like, if you die, you have to go back to the last thing you did. I was playing Iron Man mode. I got pretty freaking far. And the game, I don't know what it did. I don't remember if it was a crash or if I lost. I don't know what happened. The next time I turned on my PS4, my save was at the tutorial mission at the very beginning of the game.
Oh, man.
And I had gotten so far, and I did not play XCOM 2 for a long time after that.
I don't blame you, man. I know exactly how you like. You could start again, but it's just that feeling in the pit of your stomach, in the back of your head, just like you could be done. You could be almost to the end, but now you're not. You fool.
Oh, it's horrible, terrible.
Oh, God.
How about you? You ever lost a save?
I have a fairly recent one. I don't want to talk about how it happened, but I lost my years and years old Breath of the Wild save.
Oh, no.
Like going back to, let me think. I mean, this was probably like 4 years old at this point. It was master mode. I had unlocked basically everything. I had the Master Cycle 0. I had, all the good weapons. I say I had unlocked everything. I hadn't even done all the shrines, but like it's just all the time in that world. And it is gone with the wind, gone to ashes. Thankfully, it was deleted right before Tears of the Kingdom came out, so the blow was a little bit softened.
Okay.
Getting the master cycle on master mode was really tough. As you know, I'm not that great at games. It was a big challenge for me. It was a big challenge to get to this point, and it was, it is what it is. Life is fleeting, I say, as my coping mechanism. Honestly, like, I can't think about it. I can't think about it too much because I still feel really sad about it.
Man, rip in peace. That sucks. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. On a slightly lighter, dumb child note, the first time I played through Pokemon, so you showed me Pokemon Emerald. I had an iPhone. I could not emulate Pokemon Emerald, so I bought a Game Boy Advanced on eBay. I bought Pokemon Fire Red, and I played through the entire game up to the Elite Four, which is like the final bosses of the game. And my team was really underleveled, and not really underleveled. Like, I had beat all the bosses, but like the Elite Four and Fire Red Leaf Green are pretty tough. It is, for most of the game, it is trainer battle. You can go save whenever you want. You can go heal whenever you want. There's not really much of a challenge outside of like self-enforced rules. But the Elite Four, you have four objectively the hardest trainers in the game, or like four of the hardest trainers in the game, back to back, no saving in between. If you die, you go back to the first trainer. You have to beat all four in a row, and then you beat the champion, who is one of the harder battles in the game. I just kept getting my ass kicked over and over, and I was like, well, I guess the only thing to do is to restart the game with a new team that's like more synergetic. I don't know why I thought this. I don't know why I thought that was the case. This isn't really like losing save data per se, but I did delete my team and start over. And I'm like, why did I do that? I'm like, man, I could have like my first Pokemon team ever. Like I have the cartridge. I just, there's nothing on it now.
Oh, yeah.
I did go back and I beat the game with a new team, but I didn't care about that team as much. And I ended up like intentionally removing it to start a new save at a later point. But yeah, I intentionally lost my first Pokemon team, and I feel sad about that. I could have pulled them all the way through to my Scarlet and Violet save if I have endurance, but that is no longer an option for me, unfortunately.
Damn. That's sad. That reminds me of I had a similar situation playing Legend of the Dragoon. You heard of that game? Old PS1 RPG.
I've heard of it. I don't know too much about it, though.
It's a turn-based RPG with like little action mechanics, or like Paper Mario or something. You have to press a button when you attack. Anyway, I wasn't good at it. I was a little child, and you get three characters. You get three characters in your party every time you do a fight. If any of them die, they don't get XP for that fight. I was really bad, and the main character kept dying, and he's mandatory in your party. And he was like really low level by the time I got to Disc 2, and I could not beat the final boss of Disc 2 because I think it's just like him and one other person that's mandatory, and it's just a similar story. It's a really stupid child thing.
I don't know why grinding never occurred to me at any point.
Me neither.
It sounds like a similar situation for you.
Me neither. But I grew up to hate games where you grind, so that's probably why.
I feel like grinding is very much out right now. Like the people don't want to grind. The children do not want to grind in 2024. They could have so many. They could do so much else in that time.
Yeah.
There's just so much out there. Why would you spend your time doing repetitive, busy work?
But yeah. Has anyone else ever lost a save? Tell us about it. Let us know.
Yeah. Let us know. Tell us your sob story. Tell us about the Tamagotchi that died, or your favorite Bulbasaur named after your brother who died, who then got deleted.
Oh, man.
I want to hear it. I want to cry. Make me cry.
What a downer question. I don't want to do the rest of this podcast.
All right, yeah. Have a good night, everybody. So that was a very depressing question that was designed to talk to lead into a conversation about save data in games and how games do interesting things with save data or just data in general. We have a handful of like use or loosely threaded examples around this idea that we wanted to talk about for this one.
Yeah. I couldn't talk about cool saves. First thing that came to my mind was Earthbound, the first one, where you talk to your dad every time you save.
Yeah, that's the only way to save in the game, right? You have to call your dad, and then he saves the game for you.
You have to go to a phone. Sometimes a pay phone, so you have to like pay for it, and then you have to call your dad, and you get a little save. He tells you what he's been up to, and then he's like, "You should take a break, son," because it's a Nintendo game.
Yeah, yeah. It was the precursor to the little logo or the little thing that plays on the Wii that's like, why don't you try going outside? The Wiimote next to the window.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's always interesting when a game locks saving behind some kind of a mechanic. Whether that be like you can't save in this area or you have to like interact with this certain mechanic to save. It's not necessarily bad, but it is like it better be an intentional decision to do something like that. Otherwise, it could be very off-putting.
Yeah. I don't know why save points were like a thing back then.
You're so right. Save points, I completely forgot about them.
The Legend of the Dragoon, which I just talked about, and many Square Enix games of past are like little glowing lights that you find, and you can only save there. I don't know why. Maybe it was easier on memory, easier for I'm curious to know why save points were a thing at all.
Yeah. Maybe it goes back to arcade things. So like arcade games didn't really have any memory. Or sorry, like long-term memory other than like the high score thing.
Fair, yeah.
The only, I guess kind of the precursor to a save state would have been the password system where, and I think this extended well past arcade games, where rather than saving, you get to a certain point in the game and they give you a literal code that you have to type in to get back to the point that you were. And again, this is like a set point in the game. It's essentially like loading in a level or a certain state from memory, but not one that you necessarily like saved.
Yeah, I remember that actually, yeah.
It's, yeah, so I wonder, that feels like maybe an evolution from kind of the password system to, okay, well, now you don't have to have a password, but you can only save in these locations because that's just how we've always done it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I honestly do.
It is kind of standard for platformers, though, to not let you save still.
True.
Like, you can't save in the middle of a level. You can, if you exit the level, you exit the level, and you'll have to start over regardless of where you were.
Yeah, the more I think about it, maybe save points are just like to prevent save scumming.
Which is an interesting thing to talk about as well, save scumming. Save scumming is in games that let you essentially save at any point. It's where you save very frequently and go back to previous saves until you get your desired outcome, regardless of like, if you die or if you make the wrong decision. You are playing to get a very specific outcome, and you are, quote unquote, abusing the save system in order to get that outcome, and not just like, Yeah, I think they call it save scumming because it's, if it's an RPG game, you're theoretically like playing a role. You're no longer playing a role. You are like trying to get a certain thing. Nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. Do play however you like, but that's what that term refers to. Immediately, the first thing that comes to my mind is Bethesda games.
XCom, which I talked about earlier. XCom, notorious. Any turn-based strategy game, notorious for being able to just save scum. Bethesda games, like, I remember Fallout New Vegas. One of the things I did when I was not doing like a serious run was to go to the first place where there's the Legion camp that you can get to, and there was a broken NPC. This actually has nothing to do with save scumming. No, it can. There was a broken NPC that if you pass his speech check, it'll give you XP, but you have to pass it, and if you don't, you can never do it again. So that's where the save scumming comes into play.
Okay.
So if you fail it, you just load your save, and then eventually you'll pass his speech check, and it will stay passed, but it will also stay as a dialogue option, so you can keep passing that speech check and just level up infinitely. But he was the only NPC that I found that you could do that, and save scumming Bethesda. Anytime, like gambling, also in New Vegas, you could just save scum to become rich.
Those are very much like the two opposite ends of the spectrum, where it's you cannot save in this level, not an option, or you can save whenever you want, and you can have multiple saves. Like I would sometimes play Fallout like, I'm going to try doing this thing for a while, but I'm going to have a save of this other option, and I will like sort of play both. I'll like the multiverse of my saves in the game, not just for like dialogue trees to see what the options are, but also
just quest outcomes, doing
and just like, what if I want the same character, but I wanted to see like, if I explored like this thing, or if I took this companion instead of this companion. It's interesting and fun to try things like that. The only game I can think of that really like made that into a mechanic would be Life is Strange, the first one. They're like, they encourage it. Like the whole game is based around like going back in time, and getting all of the dialogue tree options and then choosing the one that best fits the type of gameplay that you want.
I remember that. I think the best ones are where Max acknowledges that she's going back in time. Like, the guy with the beans. The first time you can just flip his beans and he gets upset and she laughs a little, and then you rewind and you flip it again and she laughs harder.
I was eating those beans. I actually just got to that part in my playthrough of Life is Strange.
Nice.
Or my new playthrough of Life is Strange.
Nice.
Iconic moment.
That's a great example. It's like built into the mechanics.
Yeah, and I think it's really what made the first Life is Strange so interesting. It like scratches this itch in my brain of wanting to do everything. Contrary to what I said at the beginning of the episode, where I'm trying to not do everything. But Life is Strange is like, no, actually you should. We are encouraging you. And sometimes you will get information on one dialogue tree that if you go back in time, that will affect that will give you new dialogue options to explore. Like, you go to a police officer and he's like, oh yeah, we had a big shootout. You're 5 minutes into a dialogue tree and he's like, yeah, this is just like the shootout last week. And then you can go back to the very beginning of the conversation, and then there will be a new option, like ask about the shootout. And he'll be like, how the hell do you know about that? And it's interesting.
It's so cool.
That like I would probably be doing that anyway if they gave me the option. But they're like, no, not only is this an option, but it is encouraged for you to do it. And I think the big thing is like it's unlike like true save scumming games. It's gated to an extent. You can't rewind infinitely. Like theoretically in Fallout, you could go all the way back to the first cutscene. That's not the case in Life is Strange. You have like areas where it's allowed, or like a set piece.
Oh, I've abused save scumming in XCom. I'm gonna admit it. Games like XCOM, save scumming, and like train of thought just gone.
Oh, I do as well. Like specifically emulator games.
Yeah.
The stuff on Nintendo Switch Online, it lets you like rewind, it lets you save, literally like save state. I would not have beaten Metroid Prime, or not Metroid Prime, Metroid, the Super Metroid. I would not have beaten Super Metroid if I didn't have save states. Like, I probably could have, but I wouldn't have enjoyed it. It's, it made the game better for me.
Yeah, I don't think I would have beaten like Fire Emblem if I hadn't save scummed. You lose a character and they're just gone.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's it's interesting. It's interesting just how that affects the design of the game overall, of how save mechanics are implemented. It honestly like has a bigger effect than what I initially thought even going into this conversation.
I like when games acknowledge it. I think Jade Empire is one that comes to mind. I think that's the game. It has a gambling section you gamble at, and if you save scum, he like calls you a cheater, and then you can't progress that anymore. He like attacks you, I think.
Oh my god!
I've never played Jade Empire, but it's been one of those videos that have popped up. Did you know that in Jade? But yeah, I think it's cool. It's neat.
Then immediately what comes to my mind when you say that is Mr. Rossetti from Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
There was one time I was, speaking of losing save data, I was playing Animal Crossing and my DS died. And I open it back up and this mole comes out of the ground and starts yelling at me, calling me a cheater, calling me a horrible person. And I'm like, listen, pal, I didn't want to lose my save data. Now you're just rubbing salt in the wound. Like, you're rude as hell.
Oh, DS battery dies, pisses off Mr. Rossetti.
And I'm notoriously gone from Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah.
I know that because my fiance Leslie is constantly resetting and changing the time and the date in that game to get whatever outcome it is that she wants. And the first time she did it, I'm like, waiting in the wings, like, oh, Mr. Rossetti's gonna get her ass. He's gonna chew her out. Yeah, that's what she gets for not playing the game. Oh, all right. I guess they don't care anymore.
Yeah. Another cool save mechanic I wanted to talk about is importing saves from previous games. I think Mass Effect does this. Notoriously, the Witcher series does this. It's a cool mechanic. From Witcher 2, you can import your save, and it gives you some items. It gives you like some of the weapons you had before. It gives you some money. And it changes the story because it's a story like Mass Effect. It's a story-driven game,
right?
So it changes. It could change like who's alive and who's dead, and like who you're friends with and who you're not.
I mean that I can't say that I've ever played a game with mechanics like that, but that seems to like not necessarily fix but address one of the major problems with RPG sequels.
Yeah,
is that there's no sense of continuity, and essentially you like have to pick the one true path. If you don't have a mechanic like that, you decide what decisions actually happen as the developer, and the people who didn't make those decisions, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. I love that is a thing that different games have tried.
Yeah, the Fallout series like just picks a canon and sticks with it, I think.
No, CJ. Todd Howard says all the versions are canon, even if they're conflicting.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Todd Howard would never make things up. He would never lie to us. He
forgot.
loves Fallout.
I forgot. uh, one of the things that The Witcher 3 does, if you import your save, is there's a tattoo you can get, like I think for a quest in Witcher 2, that you just won't have unless you have a save with that.
That's cool. I'm curious how that would work on like cross-generation games, if at all. I mean, probably not. Like if, Witcher 2, for instance, came out on PS4 and then Witcher 3 came out on PS5, presumably that's just kind of a dead end. Unless they want to do like a survey at the beginning that's like, which of these options did you pick in the previous game?
If I remember correctly, I haven't played Witcher 1 or 2. Witcher 3 had a big hype train, and I bought it later in its life because of how much people were enjoying it. So that's the only one I played. If I remember correctly, I think they do have a little questionnaire at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
That sort of like ties stuff together.
Is there an option that's like, I have never played this game before and I don't know what these things you're asking me are?
Yes. Pillars of Eternity, that's another good game that does that. Pillars 2, there's a big questionnaire at the beginning. I don't think it imports your save, but it does have a big questionnaire about the choices you've made. Or you can literally say, hey, make it up, I don't care.
That's cool.
Love that.
Yeah. Similar but different are games that use other save data from the same game as part of the game. The immediate and maybe only one I'm going to be able to think of is Undertale, where like if you do your first playthrough as a genocide run and in which you kill everyone, subsequent playthroughs, it changes the way certain characters interact with you as a result. And I think it makes certain fights significantly harder if you do, just a full-on murder run and then try and go back and do a different type of run. That's really cool to me.
That is neat. Undertale is a beast in itself.
Yes.
In the cool mechanics and things it does.
I don't know if I know of any other games that do stuff like that. I'm sure there are, though.
I can't think of any. If you guys know any, let us know.
Yeah. We talked about platformers a little bit earlier. One that I wanted to mention that does an interesting thing with the checkpoint system is Shovel Knight.
Right.
We talked about how some games like have checkpoints as like something more integrated into the game. Shovel Knight, it's just a point that when you get to it saves your progress in that level. So if you die, you go back to that point. It gives you the option though to break the save point, giving you a large amount of money, but that save point is no longer viable to you after that point, and you'll go back to the previous save point, or if none exists, you'll go back to the very beginning of the game.
That's such a neat thing. Shovel Knight saves always reminded me sort of like its save mechanics always kind of reminded me of a Souls game where you lose your money where you died and you have to get back there to get it.
Yeah. I have to imagine that it was inspired somewhat by that. And that seems to be like a fairly popular trend now in games. Is like you die, you lose your money, but you're still fine technically. You're not losing a ton of progress. You're just losing something else.
That is a neat mechanic in itself. I think Resident Evil also did a pretty cool thing with its save mechanics. So Resident Evil gave you ink ribbons to use at the typewriters in the world.
Oh, okay.
And you only have a limited amount of ink ribbons, and you have to use one every time you save the game.
Oh, so you only get a certain number of saves for the entire game?
For the entire game, yes.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
I felt in Resident Evil 1, I didn't play it back then. I have it on Steam now, though. And it seems like I think I'm playing on the default difficulty. It seems like they give you more than you need, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine in the harder difficulties you get 3 throughout the whole game or something crazy like that. But in all the remakes, they completely did away with it in the easier difficulties. It's only in the hard difficulty that you have to use ink ribbons. But super cool mechanic. And I don't know of too many games that do that.
I can't say I've heard of any. Personally, it's a cool idea though. I could see it being used pretty effectively in certain games. But again, like you do that and you're making a very big decision.
Yeah.
And you're potentially like boxing a lot of people out. You know, and ultimately like there are some times where you need to save because little brother's coming in and he wants to play Among Us so bad, and mom says that you have to let him play Among Us, but she doesn't understand that you can't save and she doesn't care. And so despite the fact that you only have 3 ribbons and you can only use them, you are going to have to make a decision on whether you turn off the game and lose your progress. And it's tricky. Like, it's a cool mechanic. It's a cool idea, but ultimately maybe to the risk of it isolating people is pretty high.
Yeah, it the one thing it did do was make me not want to explore. In games, I like to look around at everything. Like I said earlier, I need to adopt the just get to the end mindset. But I like looking at literally everything you can look at. So it deterred that a bit, which I guess is a good thing. Sort of made me focus more.
Good and bad. Good and bad. It does make it makes exploration more of a risk reward type situation, rather of like, you know, I said earlier, like Pokemon, you can check every single trash can. There's no risk to that. If you want to spend hours of your life checking every single trash can in the game, for the I believe it's like 4 in the entire series that have an item in them. Why not? There's no risk to doing it, and the reward is bad, but like, you know, you didn't risk anything, so why would you be upset that the reward is bad? So if it's like an appropriately sized reward in order for taking the risk of exploring, it does make it seem more impactful, and like you're doing something more there.
It sort of gave me, I don't know, the opposite problem of save scumming. Like, I would use an ink ribbon to save, and then like, this place on the map, did I explore it or not? So I'll take a really long path, waste a bunch of ammo and like HP, get there, realize there's nothing there. So I'm like, I'm just gonna that never happened, and load my save. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not the opposite of a save scumming problem, but
it's like adjacent, not quite. Yeah. It is interesting though. I've definitely done things like that. Where I'm like, I'm gonna do this, and if I die, I die. I don't care. If there is something useful there, I will go back. Yeah, that's interesting too.
But no save point in the world gives me as much of a sigh of relief as a bonfire in a Souls game.
I don't have a ton of experience with Souls games, surprising no one. But I have played through a bit, and I have to say I agree. They are not overly generous with those bonfires, so when they come, good Lord.
You can just sit down, take a deep breath. The bonfires are a really cool save mechanic, because not only is it a save, it's also where you level up. It's your fast travel. It's like the menu in a Souls game. You go there to do all the things that aren't fighting.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Tying the save mechanic into other mechanics as well. I have a bad one.
Okay.
I have a bad implementation of im- implementation of like weird save mechanics, and I'm looking at you, Pokemon, again. We could put a counter in the episode to see how long it is before I mention Pokemon and how often I mention in the episode. So in the Switch releases, they have a thing to where if you have save data from the other Switch releases on the game, you get not just unlocks, not just like, oh, you get 10 potions or you get, 50 Ultra Balls. No, you get mythical Pokemon, which are exceedingly rare. And typically before the Switch era, you could get a mythical Pokemon, which are not in the game. So there's different categories of Pokemon. Legendary are Pokemon that there are only one per copy of a game in. Mythical are Pokemon that do not exist in the game when you buy it, and you can only get it through an event distribution. I.e., back in the day, you would go to GameStop and get a rewards, like get like a card with a picture of Mew on it, and it would have a code on the back that you type into your DS, and then you unlock Mew in the game. Now that is pretty much gone. They still do like mystery, they call them mystery gifts, where you can just log on and occasionally Nintendo will decide to give you a Pokemon. But now the main way to get a mythical Pokemon is you buy an entire other Pokemon game, and then you unlock that Pokemon in the respective game. Sometimes it's a Pokemon, rarely it's like a cosmetic. I'm fine with the cosmetics, but in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, you literally get like, you have Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you get a Mew. You have Pokemon Legends Arceus, you get a Shaman. You get like a ton of really otherwise rare Pokemon.
Wow.
Not for nothing, for $59.99 plus tax. It is incredibly scummy. I am not a fan of that practice.
Wow.
At that point, just sell me the Pokemon as a DLC on the eShop and just remove all the whimsy at that point. Who cares? If you can't tell, I hate this mechanic. I think it's very stupid. I'm already like kind of off on mythicals anyway. This is the worst possible implementation of them.
Woof. So you buy one and you get the mythical on the other game. Do you get the mythical that you could get on the other game on the game you bought?
Sometimes, usually not the same thing, but you can get like there will usually be like a different reward, either a mythical or like. So I think in Brilliant Diamonds, Shining Pearl, if you have Pokemon Legends Arceus, you get Shaman. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, if you have Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, you get like a different outfit or something. I think you get the outfit that one of the evil team members wears, something like that. So you get a cosmetic unlock.
Oh, man.
So it varies per game. BDSP is by far like the most generous with just giving you an insane amount of rare Pokemon. I'm not a fan. I don't think this is a good system.
Man, you know those shows that were made to sell toys,
Well, like Pokemon.
like Transformers and those. I was gonna say, Pokemon is the most successful one of those ever.
Oh, let me tell you, Pokemon was designed from day one to be a multi-faceted media empire. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but like this was very intentional. It was very intentional with like the trading card and the anime and the games. Like the second they got some track, like even before the games were out, they were planning this. And the second they got traction, it's like pedal to the metal. This is happening, and now they're the highest grossing media franchise in the world. So it works very well. They know what they're doing.
Could you imagine another universe where like, where did it go? Where Bakugan was Pokemon was as famous as Pokemon is?
No.
No, and I don't
want to
want
imagine it. Oh yeah, I've been playing this weird old indie game. It's called Pokemon. Yeah, I'm pretty fond of this little Pikachu guy. I don't know, pretty indie.
Shut up, rips Bakugan.
Excuse me, that's Beyblade. Beyblade is where you let it rip.
Oh shit. Oh no, I've been found out. Fake fan.
Canceled. So we this larger conversation about save was perhaps started by a very specific save data thing that we wanted to talk about, which is the Pokemon transfer system.
Yes. So after we recorded our last episode, we were like coming up with ideas, and I'm like, I want to talk about a Pokemon thing, and Sam's eyes lit up because I wanted to talk about a Pokemon thing. I wanted to talk about the fact that I don't think anything else, any other game, lets you use your character or anything from the very first iteration back in like the 80s, 90s. Yeah. Let's talk about the transfer system in Pokemon.
Yeah. And let us know if there's something else that does this, because I would be so curious to know. But as far as we are aware, Pokemon is the only one that has attempted to do something like this. So I'm going to start with a very high-level overview of how this works, and then we can talk specifics and how this affects like gameplay and design decisions. Because there is some really there are some really interesting systems that come from this like requirement that Pokemon can always transfer up. So Red and Blue come out like 96, I believe. Big hit. Shortly after, Gold and Silver come out on the same console. No, I'm sorry. Red and Blue were on the Game Boy. Gold and Silver were on the Game Boy Color. Those games allowed you to transfer from what I believe was called the Time Machine. Double checking my math here. Okay. The Time Machine allowed you to trade from Gen 2 to Gen 3. Gen 1 to Gen 2. You could just take a Pokemon that you caught in Gen 1 and trade it up to Gen 2, not the other way around. So it's only trading forward. Once a Pokemon has gone forward, it can never go back.
Right.
The reason for that is because in many, many games, probably all, there is some amount of change to the way Pokemon are coded, and the data that is needed to store them is different between the games.
Right.
Whether that be like new moves that are added, sometimes a Pokemon's type changes, sometimes the way that stats are implemented in the game will be handled differently. But for whatever reason specific to that generation, there's never been like trading back from a 2 to a 1 or a 3 to 2, whatever. Okay. So the only time in the history of Pokemon games that there has been no cross-generation trading is Generation 2 to Generation 3. That was the big cutoff.
Oh.
And that this is probably hearsay at this point, but the one of the developers of Pokemon has like gone on record saying that is one of his biggest regrets as a developer, is not being able to transfer from Gen 2 to Gen 3. That is Gold, Silver, Crystal to Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. And that the console switch was from Game Boy Color to Game Boy Advance. I honestly don't know why.
Perhaps they saw the snowballing effect that they were creating and how much they would have to store in future updates. Because I think probably the big reason, besides like stat changes and stuff, that you can't go backwards would be you'd have to store the sprites and the new stats and maybe new moves all back on the old cartridges, which just you couldn't do, right? I don't think you could write. I don't know what I'm saying.
That could be part of it. I'm not really sure. I do think that there have been people. This is like a thumbnail of a YouTube video that I saw and didn't click on, but I saw something where somebody was attempting to move the data from a Gen 2 to a Gen 3 game without the help of Nintendo.
Okay, I Googled it, and the first thing that pops up was someone saying that's illegal.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Pokemon.
So, Gen 2 Pokemons, if you take them to the Gen 3 world, they're basically contraband.
Well, yes. In fact, if you were able to do that and transfer it all the way up to Generation 9, there is a chance that your Nintendo account could get suspended.
Whoa.
Like, they don't mess around. Nintendo does not mess around. Having, like, hacked Pokemon in your account could, like, get your entire account suspended.
Oh, man.
It's pretty crazy.
The contraband thing was a joke, but I guess not.
It is legitimate contraband.
That's hilarious.
I think the odds that something like that happen are, like, next to none. But when you like open up Pokemon Home, which we'll get to in a minute, like there is a big statement that you have to read that's like, if you try and get hacked Pokemon on here, we can and will suspend your account.
Wow.
It's wild. And there's a whole thing around that. We can get into it in a minute. So we're at Gen 3. So Gen 3, this isn't necessarily needed for the conversation about transfer, but this is when they started doing remakes. So Generation 3, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald also came with Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, which were remakes of Generation 1. They did that so you can get all of the Pokemon. Like, because you couldn't go back and trade from Gen 2 up, Gen 3, or Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald did not have the full Pokédex. They did not have all, like, 300 however many Pokemon that had been created. They made Fire Red, Leaf Green for the purpose of being able to complete what's called the National Dex. So each Pokemon game has what's called the local dex and then the national dex. The local dex is the Pokemon you can catch without doing any transfers at all. The national dex is the full list of every Pokemon that has ever been created. You can only complete the national dex in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald by trading from Fire Red, Leaf Green, which you can see a bit of a through line here of Pokemon being very good at getting you to buy other games for the sake of unlocking other Pokemon.
Yep.
So there no transfer mechanic from Gen 2 to Gen 3. Gen 3 to Gen 4, they had...
Okay, before I get too lost, you said no transfers from Gen 2 to Gen 3. So is it impossible to get Gen 1s and 2s on newer games?
Yes and no. You cannot. There is no way to get a Pokemon from an original cartridge onto a new game. However, for the 3DS family of systems, they re-release Gold, Silver, Crystal, Red, Blue on the Virtual Console, and they implemented transfer to other 3DS games, so you can get a Generation 1 Pokemon forward, but not one from an original cartridge.
I see. Okay, carry on.
One moment, I need to look up the name.
Okay. Real quick, Sam gave me a little picture of, like, it's sort of a graph, but it's a snake caterpillar thing that shows all the Pokemon games and how you can transfer them from system to system. And it really put into perspective, like, if you wanted to have a Pokemon from each one of these, not only would you need that game, you would need the console that it was on.
Mm-hmm. So
there's like there's a bunch of consoles you need just to It's crazy. It's insane.
We'll post a link to this. Somebody on the Pokemon subreddit put this together, and it, like you said, it really puts it into perspective.
Some Pepe Sylvia shit.
So Gen 3 to Gen 4 is the one I'm least familiar with. The feature is called the PAL Park. And this one worked. You had to have, oh man. So you had to have one of the DS that had both a DS cartridge slot and a Game Boy Advance cartridge slot. That is the only way. So you have to put both games in at the same time. You go to this place called the PAL Park, and then essentially you have to like go and recatch the Pokemon that you want to transfer in this area called the PAL Park. It's like a slightly specialized catching mini game where it's like, okay, I want to transfer my Pikachu up, and then you have to go into the PAL Park and find your Pikachu and then capture it in the new game. One of the, again, I'm not very familiar with this one. I hate it in principle. I hate the idea that you have to go back and catch it. Just let me move it. Don't make me do this whole song and dance. Especially like, can you imagine being a Gen 4 player and trying to get the full national dex, and you have to go and you have to catch you have to catch them all in Generation 3 on the cartridge that you made your mom buy you, and then you have to catch them again in Generation 4. It is a Herculean effort, even at this point.
This raises a couple more questions.
Absolutely.
Let me remind people that I played one Pokemon way back when, and I didn't get far. And then I haven't played any since. Well, I played like a little bit of the ones on the Switch, but just enough to like get a taste. Mm-hmm. When you transfer a Pokemon, does it save their level and everything?
Yes. Everything about them is the same, including all Pokemon have an original trainer mark on. So when you go to view their data summary, they have like the name of the original trainer who caught them. That can never be changed. It can never be changed under any circumstances, as far as I know. Huh. So like, if you catch a Pikachu in Generation 3 in Pokemon Emerald, and you trade it to me, and then I transfer it all the way up to Generation 9, Scarlet and Violet, it will still say whatever your trainer name was on that game. It will still say CJ on that Pokemon forever.
I had a DS, and I don't know how it got this name. I think one of my friends broke in and changed my name, but my name was Poi, P-O-I, forever. Don't know what. So it would have said Poi.
I love that. That's really funny.
My other question is, how is that not busted?
Because in most games... Well, in some, it's limited by like the, some weird mechanic that you have to go to, i.e. like recatching them. In most, if not all, you can't do it until you've beaten the main story. Okay. Until you're like champion of the region, you've beaten all the main stuff.
Okay, that makes sense then.
So it's it's usually locked behind something like that. Okay. And even if you like, I don't know if this is possible, but say you did get like a level 99 Charizard in your game, that Pokemon will not listen to you if you do not have enough gym badges.
Oh gosh, okay.
That's like a long-standing mechanic, is that if the Pokemon is significantly higher level than you, it has like a very high odds of just not listening to the commands that you give it, and it will like just lie around and take damage. Again, like it only if you're fighting Weedles in the woods and you have a level 99 Charizard, even if it only hits 1 in 10 attacks, you're gonna be fine. But that's how that is sort of like mitigated.
Okay, all right.
Generation 4, which would be Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, as well as Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which were the remakes of Generation 2. They had transfer through the Poke Transfer system. This one I also am not overly familiar with. But there was another sort of mini game where I believe how it worked is it is a freeware that you download onto your DS from the Nintendo eShop. Yeah, it's freeware that you download from the eShop. You get your Generation 4 cartridge, you put it in, you open up the Poke Transfer app, select the Pokemon from your box that you want to be transferred, close the Poke Transfer app, take out the Generation 4 cartridge, put in the Generation 5 black 2, white 2, put it in, open the Poke Transfer app again, and then you have to perform a mini game in the Poke Transfer app that I think used the DS camera in some way to recapture all of your Pokemon again, and then they are allowed to go into your Generation 5 games.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's insane. Oh, it's insane. So I think I'm just now catching on that this graph you sent me starts at Gen 3.
Yes.
We'll
yes,
post
because because of the cutoff.
Okay. We'll post this graph if y'all want it in the description too. And you can follow along at home. We could edit something into the beginning and say, hey, if you want to follow along at home, download this quick little PNG.
Yeah. Maybe we can. I don't know. We can try setting it as the chapter art. I don't know if that will work for all podcast players though. We can try it.
Be neat.
Okay, so Poke Transporter. Sorry, it's Poke Transporter, not Poke Transfer. Again, apologies if I'm getting any of the details wrong. I haven't done that one personally. So that's Generation 5. And then next would be Generation 6, which is the 3DS era. X, Y, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, as well as the virtual console games that I mentioned earlier. Blue, red, yellow, gold, silver, crystal. All of those go through Pokemon Bank, which is another app that you have to download. This one is really simple. You just open up the app, you select which game you want, you pull the Pokemon, you put them in the bank, which is like cloud storage for your Pokemon. You can move them fairly freely between the games, like pretty straightforward. That one is probably the easiest out of all of them, except for Pokemon Home, which is the next one.
Yeah, I'm just seeing Pokemon Go on this list.
Yes.
I'm going to rescind what I said earlier about not playing any Pokemons. There was a huge Pokemon Go outbreak all over the world, also in my high school, so I was a part of that. I played a lot of Pokemon Go for a year.
I feel like a lot of people did. Like you said, it was a phenomena. So yeah, Pokemon Bank was the 3DS era, pretty easy, not a lot of hoops you have to jump through. Then it went to the Switch era, which is a lot. Man, I did not realize how many Pokemon games we have on the Switch.
Yeah.
Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, Pokemon Sword, Pokemon Shield, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Legends Arceus, and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
Pokemon Go and Arceus surprised me, actually.
Yeah.
I thought they were like spin-offs and not related specifically to the thing, but you can just transfer your Pokemon from those?
You can. It took a long time. So Pokemon Go came out during the 3DS era. It took till fairly recently in the Switch era for them to actually implement transfer. And it is, again, one-way transfer. You cannot transfer anything into Pokemon Go, only out from, because it is a very they're jumping through some hoops, and the Pokemon come out a bit different in terms of like stats and stuff whenever you pull them out from Pokemon Go.
I was gonna say, from what I remember about Pokemon Go, it was not at all like Pokemon. Like you attack by tapping.
Yes, and I've transferred a couple from Pokemon Go, and I think it's just like you have two moves in Go. They are typically like based on real moves in the game, so that's not an issue.
Okay.
The general practice is if there is a move that you have that's not available or is no longer in a game, it's just like removed, and that Pokemon only has like 3 of its 4 move slots filled.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that some of the moves in Pokemon Go weren't actual Pokemon moves.
I don't know. I'm not. I don't know that much about Pokemon Go's battling mechanics, so maybe they're all based on real moves. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But yeah, Pokemon Home is like the successor to Pokemon Bank. It's a big cloud storage system where you can view all the Pokemon. It actually has like some pretty nice management tools for moving things around. You can actually like view all the data. It's maybe one of the ugliest versions of Pokemon I have ever seen drawn. Like, truly, the renders in that game are atrocious. Or not game, but like the system. You know, an app that you download and pay a subscription for to, like, you know, relive all of the Pokemon that you've caught over the years is truly just atrocious design for the Pokemon themselves. It's like a weird cell shaded look that just does not work well. I don't know. It's like when a company switches from whatever their logo was to like a flattened version of it, that you can tell it's like, we did this to make our company more appealing to like corporate audiences. That's what it looked. It looks like they took all the Pokemon and like put them through the washer several times and then ran them over with a steamroller. They're just like flat and washed out. Very, very, like, it doesn't matter really because you're not going to spend that much time in Pokemon Home, but it is a shame that this app that's supposed to be like a showcase of all of your work over the years is just extremely ugly. This is the first one that's available on your phone. For the first time, I believe ever, you can view all of your Pokemon, including ones you caught all the way back in Generation 3. You can view them on your smartphone, and you can see their stats, and you can see the original trainer name, and you can see all of their ribbons, which are basically like achievements specific to that Pokemon. So like, you know, you beat the champion in Generation 3. The region is called Hoenn. That Pokemon will always have a ribbon on it saying like Hoenn Champion. And so if you transfer that Pokemon all the way up, it will always say like, this is the Hoenn Champion. And there's no other way to receive that ribbon outside of hacking on the Pokemon. So like, not only is it like the same Pokemon, but there is something different. There is something like special about the fact that they have been transferred all the way up. And especially in the new games, Scarlet and Violet, not only are the ribbons on them, but they have what's called like titles. So you can, there's just a setting, but you can choose which ribbon is the Pokemon's title. And when you throw that Pokemon into battle, it will say like, come on out, Clefairy, the champion of Hoenn, or something.
That's neat.
Which is really cool, especially because it works in online battles. Like,
that's cool.
So you fight somebody online, and you did all of the work to transfer something up from your very first game. That ribbon will always be on it, and it will like show it off to everybody.
That's a neat little flex, honestly.
Yeah. If somebody did that to me, I'd just surrender. I'd just be like, you got this. You won.
You win. You are Pokemon. I give up. That's cool.
Yeah. So that was a lot of information. Is there anything I can clarify? Or do you have any questions about like the transfer process?
Yeah, is this the Pokemon Home art you're talking about?
The very first one.
The first one? Okay.
It's just like flat and washed out. I am very, very much not a fan. It looks fine for some of the like the main ones, but you know, you look at Quilladin in Pokemon Home.
Not gonna try to
Like,
spell that.
they didn't spend any effort making Quilladin look good. Arascuda, Barracuda, like these like C-lister
Casting a
Pokemon.
spell on me right now.
Yes. These C-lister Pokemon, they do not look good. They like took the model and they just, shoved it through whatever shader that they have and called it a day.
I see. Oh.
So yeah, I'll do a quick like. All right, so you get your starter in Generation 3 Mudkip. People love Mudkip. In order to get it to Diamond and Pearl, you need to use the PAL Park. To get it from Diamond and Pearl to Black and White, you need to use Poke Transporter, I think. My mistake. It's called the Transfer Lab. Oh, anyway, regardless, whatever. You get the point. And then from Black and White, you use the Poke Transporter to get it into X and Y. From X and Y into the Switch. Use the Poke Transporter the Poke Transporter in Pokemon Bank to get it into the Generation 6 games, and then use Pokemon Bank to Pokemon Home to get it into the Switch era consoles. And that is like the general flow. We will post the chart. It does a much better job of explaining it.
Man, and as an outsider looking in, I see why people love Pokemon. Like, some of these Pokemon are basically their pets that they've had, like, since they were kids.
Yeah.
And, man.
And there are definitely some people who do that. Like, you go on the subreddit and it's like, oh yeah, I've had my starter, like the first ever starter I caught from Generation 3. I've transferred it up with me always. And like, when I was sick in the hospital, all I had was Pokemon, and all I had was my Blaziken. It was my best friend. Like, literally, I've read posts like that. And it's cool. It's cool that they do this.
It's beautiful.
That being said, I would be remiss not to talk about Dexit, which...
Is that like Brexit?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Because for Generation 8, they made something based on... or a region based on the UK. For the first time ever, they did not include all of the national decks in the game.
I remember this. I wasn't a Pokemon guy, but I remember this, actually, yeah.
Yeah, you cannot transfer... There are some Pokemon that you cannot transfer into that game, but you can pay $2.99 a month to save them into Pokemon Home. Yeah, wow. They're always hustling. They've always got it. And I'm not going to defend that decision, but I think there's leads into the more interesting conversation about like what an incredible amount of work this is. Mm-hmm. To maintain. An example I don't know if I've said on the podcast before, but I will say anyway, is the Pokemon Spinda, which I believe is a Generation 3 Pokemon. So going all the way back to the first possible transfers. Spinda is a little bear with curly, crazy eyes, and its pattern on its fur is randomly generated and unique to every Spinda that you catch. Cool. Interesting. But that means that Generation 4, when you transfer your Spinda up, you better believe that Spinda needs to have the same pattern as the previous generation. And the same for Generation 5 and Generation 6 and 7 and 8. Switching like hardware generations multiple times. Like in order to like maintain, switching from 2D to 3D, making sure that little Timmy's Spinda that he caught, now that he's Timothy, the grown man with 3 kids, he needs to have that Spinda in his save of Scarlet and Violet. By God.
It is legitimately the same pattern, like from the beginning.
As far as I know, yes.
That is
they maintain
crazy.
The same pattern. It's that's just a good example of like what a Herculean effort this is, because it's not just Spinda. There are 1,000 other Pokemon that not all of them, but many of them have weird mechanics. Generation 6, which we're on Generation 9 now, so it's not that long ago, the Pokemon Inkay has to evolve by holding your 3DS upside down while it levels up. It's using the gyroscope. What they had to do when Scarlet and Violet came to the Switch and they decided to add Inkay, they had to go back in and like add that mechanic so it still works. Sometimes they'll just be like, fuck it, we're not gonna do that. It evolves regularly now.
I imagine they'll have to cut corners eventually.
They do for some, and they're like, another good example is Generation 4 came out with Leafeon and Glaceon, who evolved by touching a specific stone, like a location on the map. You had to go to and evolve your Pokemon next to that stone. From Generation 4 all the way up to 8, I believe, they all had the Mossy Stone and Icy Stone somewhere in every region, so you could evolve those two Pokemon specifically.
That's crazy.
I know Legends Arceus was like, okay, we have a... Oh, wait, no. Legends Arceus kept that because it's a remake of Gen 4. I believe Generation 9, they were like, okay, enough is enough. You can evolve them with the Leaf Stone and the Ice Stone.
My God.
But yeah, it's interesting not only like how they've backed themselves into this corner, but also like what design decisions they have to make and how that influences the Pokemon that they are coming out with now.
Right.
And Generation 6 did something that is somewhat controversial, which is they introduced the idea of like generation-specific evolutions that do not carry forward. Specifically Mega Evolutions, which are like the most popular mechanic that probably since like, I don't know, catching Pokemon. Like Mega Evolution, extremely popular. It lets certain Pokemon have a fourth evolution that lasts only the duration of one battle, and you can only do one per battle. But that from the very first second you like are introduced to that mechanic, they're like, okay, but you can only do it here. You can only do it in Kalos. It does not exist anywhere else. Like, don't get too attached. And then they're like, okay, well, you can technically do it in Generation 7, but like the other games don't get Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution is that era only. Asterisk because Pokemon Legends ZA is coming out. Ignore that. They did Generation 7. They had a mechanic, but it was like a move base, so there's no form changes. Generation 8, they introduced the Dynamax and Gigantamax mechanic, which is like literally could not exist in another game because the entire region is designed around these gigantic open stadiums where it's like a big open roof, like a football stadium, where it's the Pokemon become gigantic and they have this big fight. Like that wouldn't work in any of the other games because they have roofs,
Right.
It's just not a thing. And so I think that's like a sign that they are reserving some of their more interesting designs for mechanics that are designed not to be carried forward.
Okay.
It's like, we don't want to keep doing this for every single Pokemon. We want to still have cool ideas and cool mechanics, but we don't necessarily want to carry those forward to every single new region in perpetuity.
Right. I think that's smart in that it makes the games not just another Pokemon. Each game is a unique version of that, a unique version of Pokemon. Where people like upset when the next one didn't have? I'm sure there were, but was it a massive outcry when there wasn't Mega Evolutions anymore?
It was a decent outcry, but the same generation that did that was the same one that Dexit took place.
Mm-hmm.
So people were more upset about that than they were about Mega Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time like they were ready to remove Gigantamax from the next game, people were just kind of over it. You know, they were like, okay, well, this is the standard now.
And I think more than a Pokemon thing, that's back to what we were saying earlier with it's a Nintendo thing. Nintendo likes to try, something cool in one game and then never bring it back again.
Yeah.
Flood from Super Mario Sunshine was a really cool mechanic, but that is very much Mario Sunshine's identity. They're not going to bring that back ever again.
Yeah. And also like a little bit tied to the hardware. I know they remade it, but like Flood was designed for the pressure sensitive GameCube triggers. That was like a big part of it, and it's just on off on the Switch version. You know, there's no subtlety there.
Yeah. How? Man, Pokemon's crazy, dude.
Pokemon, you could play hundreds of hours of video games and make video games your whole personality and never play anything but Pokemon. There's just so much out there. And if you're into team management, if you're into like team building and coming up with different strategies, it really scratches that itch for me and for a lot of people, obviously. But yeah, that was it's just interesting. Not only like this crazy system that they have of getting Pokemon from one place to the other, which by the way is like now officially broken technically, because the 3D or the DS and 3DS eShops are closed, and the Poke Transfer they're like freeware that you have to install from the eShop. So if you already have it installed, you can still use it, but you can't go and install it now. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. You can find a way.
Oh man, so the chain is broken then.
The chain is officially broken.
Okay.
But it's still it's still very possible, and it's from what I understand, it's quite easy to get games on your DS, even though the eShop is closed down.
Yes.
But yeah, it's interesting, not only the system, but like how that has influenced the design of the games over time with these new mechanics. So like Mega Evolution, Gigantamax, they seem to be like on a bi-generation cycle where even numbered generations have a form change associated with associated with the mechanic, and then odd numbered generations are like a move-based thing. So it'll be interesting to see if for Generation 10 they do another form change, or if they decide to bring something back, or what's going on with that. But as far as like save data goes and like bringing data between games, I don't think anybody does it quite like Pokemon, and quite at the scale and like the logistics that have to go into that. I feel fairly confident that when developing, a pretty significant amount of time is just spent like getting Pokemon in from the old generations.
Yeah. A lot of people like meme on Pokemon's graphics, even though they're like the newest gen, they still look like they did before, but it kind of takes it. Because if you do update the graphics for your next Pokemon game, unless you do another Dexit, you're going to have to update the graphics for all... How many Pokemon are there now?
There's 1,000.
1,000? Yeah. That is insane, and probably... You think the developers of the 90s are like laughing at the new guys coming up in Niantic?
I bet they are. I bet they... I do not envy them. I do not envy whatever guy whose job for the past nearly 30 years has just been like writing transfer mechanics between games.
Oh, man.
And like making sure the models work between new engines, you know, because they do have like one set of 3D models that they use to like cross-generational sort of. So there is like some amount of like bringing things forward, but you know, you have to make sure the shaders work. You have to make sure, like, this isn't even mentioning the moves, the like hundreds and hundreds of moves that theoretically need to be able to work with most of the Pokemon. They need to be able to work on pretty much anything. And it's a big it's like crazy. It's crazy to think about the amount of work that this is.
When Sword and Shield came out, people were like, I remember people were making fun of, like, whenever they would do an attack move, it would just be their model sliding forward, moving left and right a little bit.
Yes.
But, like, I didn't jump on that train of making fun of that because, like, the amount of moves, the amount of Pokemon, there's no way. I guess making one animation for just a simple attack, but still, that's insane. Insane.
And some of the, like, I've also seen those complaints. I get it. But, like, you know, some of the concepts, like, there's a move called Nasty Plot, where it's essentially like the flavor text is like the user thinks evil thoughts and it raises their defense and special defense or something. Don't at me at what that move actually does. Like, what would you do? What would you do? Right. Okay, you came up with a cool thing for Nasty Plot. Now do it like 500 other times for all the other moves. And at a certain point with some of these status changes, like, there's only so many ways to like represent these really abstract ideas in such a way that it can apply to, like, you know, not technically every Pokemon, because not every Pokemon can learn every move, but like theoretically when they're designing these moves, they are designing them in such a way that they can work on anything.
Man. Pokemon is a snowball that is... I don't know if it's out of control yet. I think they've got a good control on it right now, but...
Deciding, like, they pretty much said going forward that, like, not every game is going to have every Pokemon. Sorry, subscribe to Pokemon Home, like...
I see.
Or you can't keep doing it like this. And it was a big deal, and people were upset, but, you know... You have to have some amount of empathy for the situation that they're in. Yeah. Whether or not you think it's like the right decision, you still have to be like, this is insane. This is insane. Yeah. The world that we're in.
Yeah. Is Scarlet and Violet that way? Does it not have all Pokemon?
Yes, it is that way.
Okay.
They do have like most of them. They do have like a solid 3/4, both Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield. But neither one of them have all of them.
Wow. Absolute insanity.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, man.
The whole transition from 2D to 3D for the games is like, I think, magnified the amount of work that had to go in because you're switching from sprites to models.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it has truly just been a scramble ever since, I think it was like 2013. So, like, the past decade, I think, is them, like, screaming and running around while the office is on fire and they have to release a Pokemon game every single year. It does not matter if it's done or not. I would never, ever want to be a developer at Game Freak.
No. Man, that answers my question I had about the Pokemon save. Thank you. Thanks for that walkthrough. That was intense.
You're welcome. This is my special interest. I know a lot about Pokemon.
It's good. It's perfect because I know I know a bit more now.
You know a bit more.
If there are any other cool save mechanics in games that we didn't discuss, let us know, man. We want to hear about them.
Yeah. Have you ever transferred a Pokemon from a previous generation at all? You know, for all of this conversation, there's a lot of people who have never, ever touched this mechanic once. Have you ever done it? What's like the furthest generation you brought back? Do you have like a Pokemon best friend you're just, you got to have them in every game? I want to know.
Do you have a sentimental Caterpie out there? I want to hear about it.
That's Systems in Play.
Thanks
we'll
for
see y'all.
listening.
I was eating those beans.
Are you casting a spell on me right now?
Yes.